No one expects to discover their life is built on calculated lies, but I refuse to let manipulation and gaslighting destroy what mattered most. My name is Michael Grant, and I'm 32 years old. Each morning I make breakfast for my kids in the same kitchen where my wife once claimed I was paranoid for questioning her hidden phone. The bruises from the stairwell have faded, but the clarity remains sharp. My brother Nate saw the truth immediately when I showed up at his door that night with my children. Emily, my wife of 8 years, had crafted her deception alongside Derek, my supposed best friend since college. Even now, the oak banister bears a gouge from my fall. I chose evidence over emotion, documentation over drama, and truth over chaos. But let me start from the beginning. I remember the morning everything shifted. Late October, leaves skittering across our driveway as I packed lunches. Turkey and cheese for Tommy, PB&J with the crusts off for Sarah. The same routine I'd followed for years, right down to tucking a napkin-written note into each box. That's when I first heard it. A soft buzz, like a phone vibrating against wood, coming from somewhere in the house. I checked my pocket, then the counter. Nothing. The sound faded before I could trace it. Remember when you'd swear you felt your phone vibrate, only to find it silent? It was like that, but this phantom buzz carried weight. It lodged in my gut like a splinter. I pushed it aside, focused on getting the kids to school. There were invoices to process for work, and Emily had her usual Wednesday meetings. Normal stuff. But that buzz scratched at the back of my mind, an itch I couldn't reach. Later that week, I noticed Emily's shower routine had changed. Her Apple Watch used to sit face up on the bathroom counter, notifications occasionally lighting up the screen. Now it lay face down, silent. A small thing, maybe nothing. But it joined that phantom buzz in my mental file of not quite right. The sound of her laughing pulled me from my home office that afternoon. She was folding towels in the living room, phone in hand, smiling at something on the screen. When I asked what was funny, she startled slightly. "Just a meme," she said, but her laugh had been different, private, intimate. Tommy's bedtime question that night cracked something open inside me. We were reading his favorite dinosaur book when he looked up and asked, "Daddy, does Uncle D live far away?" My hand froze on the page. Uncle D? We didn't have any family with that initial. "Who's that, buddy?" "Mommy's friend," he said, already distracted by a T-Rex illustration. "He has a motorcycle." I kissed him goodnight, with my heart thundering against my ribs. That splinter of doubt drove deeper. The next morning I tackled the laundry room while Emily took the kids to soccer practice. Behind the dryer first, checking for that phantom buzz source. Nothing. Under the sorting table. Clean. Then I lifted a stack of damp swim towels from yesterday's lesson. There it was, a phone I'd never seen before, face down on the shelf. Not some old model. This was newer than mine, warm like it had recently been used. The protective case was plain black, anonymous. I slipped it into my pocket just as the garage door hummed to life. Emily was back early. My palms went damp, but I kept my breathing steady. Years of marriage, 2 beautiful kids, a home we'd built together. All of it suddenly felt like a stage set about to collapse. Standing in that laundry room, I could hear Emily's keys hitting the kitchen counter. In my pocket, the hidden phone vibrated. A banner notification lit up the screen. "Missed last night already. Hotel receipt and email. D." I walked into the kitchen, each step measured, and set the phone on the counter. Emily was unloading groceries, her movements quick and efficient. The device made a soft click against the granite. "Whose phone is this?" I kept my voice neutral. She glanced over, then did a double take. Her hands stilled on a bag of apples. "That's my old one. Why are you going through my things?" It was under the swim towels, warm. "Getting messages. You're being paranoid." She turned back to the groceries, but her movements were sharper now. "Just put it down and help me with these bags." Instead, I pressed the power button. The screen lit up instantly. Messages cascaded across the display. Hotel confirmations, calendar entries with just the letter D and times. A thread of texts filled with "miss you already" and "can't wait to see you." My throat tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "Are you seeing him?" "What are you talking about?" She stepped closer, eyes narrow. "Put the phone down, now." "I'm asking for the truth, Emily. Just tell me what's going on." "Stop acting like a victim." Her voice rose. "You're being ridiculous. Give me the phone." The kitchen felt too small. I needed space to think, to breathe. When I turned toward the stairs, her footsteps followed. "Don't you dare walk away from me!" Her hands hit my back, hard. The world tilted. My shoulder slammed the edge of a step, then another. My vision strobed with each impact. The railing slipped through my fingers. I tumbled, unable to catch myself, until I crashed onto the landing. For a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Pain bloomed across my right side, hot and insistent. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard Emily's sharp intake of breath, then her retreating footsteps. The house went quiet, except for my ragged breathing. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking. Before shock could set in, I documented everything. The angry red marks already darkening to bruises, the scattered contents of my pockets on the stairs, the angle of the fall. The fluorescent lights in the ER made everything too sharp, too real. A nurse with kind eyes checked my vitals, her movements gentle around my injured shoulder. She paused in her note-taking, pen hovering above the chart. "Mr. Grant," she said softly, "do you feel safe at home?" The question hit harder than the fall. Pride warred with truth in my throat. But looking at the bruises spreading across my arm, I knew what I had to say. "Not tonight," I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not anymore." The ER discharge papers crinkled in my pocket as I walked to my car. Each step sent a dull throb through my shoulder, but the pain helped. It kept me focused, present. I sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, then pulled out my phone and called Nate. "Hey, little brother." His voice was warm, normal. "Kinda late, isn't it?" "Emily shoved me down the stairs," I said quietly. "Found a second phone. Things went bad." The line went silent for a heartbeat. When Nate spoke again, his tone had shifted to something careful and steady. "Are you okay?" ER gave me the all clear. "But the kids," I swallowed hard. "I need help getting them out tonight. I'm leaving now." 20 minutes later, Nate's truck pulled into my driveway. The house was dark except for the porch light. My doorbell camera showed Emily leaving 15 minutes earlier, her movements stiff and rushed as she'd loaded a small bag into her car. We moved efficiently, speaking in low voices. I packed overnight bags for the kids while Nate carried them, still sleeping, to his truck. Before we left, I took more photos of the staircase, documenting the scuff marks from my fall. The second phone went into a sealed envelope. Remember those summer camping trips when we were kids? How Dad would triple-check the tent stakes, making sure everything was secure. That same careful attention guided my movements now as I locked up the house. The drive to Nate's apartment was quiet. My niece's art projects decorated his fridge, and the guest room still had the bunk beds from when his kids visited on weekends. We tucked my children in, their peaceful breathing a stark contrast to the chaos of the night. In the bathroom, I cataloged the damage. Purple bruises spread across my shoulder and back. I took photos with timestamps, then a video showing the full extent. My hands didn't shake anymore. Dawn crept through Nate's living room windows when the second phone lit up on his coffee table. The message made my stomach clench. "Delete everything. CPS call tonight." I handed the phone to Nate. He read the message, his jaw tightening. "This isn't a threat," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "It's evidence." Nate set the phone down carefully. "What do you need?" I opened my laptop, created a new folder, and started organizing everything chronologically. Photos of the bruises, doorbell footage, screenshots of the threatening text. Each file named with date and time, each piece building a clear picture of what happened. "Can you drive me to a lawyer in the morning?" I asked, not looking up from the screen. "I need to do this right." "Already looking up family law specialists," Nate replied, his phone in hand. "We'll head out first thing." The soft glow of my laptop screen illuminated our quiet work. Two brothers building a fortress of truth, document by careful document. The morning sun felt wrong, too bright, too normal. Nate drove while I reviewed the evidence folder on my phone, each photo and screenshot arranged in perfect chronological order. The weight of the second phone sat heavy in my jacket pocket. The law office occupied a converted Victorian, all dark wood and brass fixtures. It reminded me of Sunday dinners at our grandparents' house, that same solid permanence. The thought steadied me as we waited in leather chairs that creaked with age. "Mr. Grant?" The attorney was a woman in her 50s, with reading glasses on a chain. "Come in, please." Nate followed without being asked, taking the chair beside me. I laid out the story in measured pieces. The hidden phone, the confrontation, the shove. My shoulder twinged as I demonstrated the angle of the fall. The bruise photos came next, then the ER paperwork documenting fall down stairs after domestic incident. And this, I said, placing the second phone on her desk, arrived with a threat about CPS last night. She examined everything, making notes in precise handwriting. We'll file for a temporary protective order immediately, and I suggest changing the locks. You're still the primary resident? Yes. Mortgage and deed are in my name. The filing took less than an hour. The clerk's stamp echoed in the courthouse corridor, making it real. By noon, I had 3 copies. One for my records, one for Emily, one for law enforcement. Back at the house, I knelt at the front door with a new deadbolt while Nate kept watch. The screwdriver felt solid in my hand, something tangible I could fix. Strange how muscle memory works. I used to change locks for my summer job in college, back when life seemed simpler. Exchange is at 4, I said, testing the new key. Library parking lot. Nate nodded. I'll be nearby. The library lot was half full when Emily pulled in. I had the bank statements ready, hotel charges highlighted in neat yellow lines. My hands stayed visible on the steering wheel until she approached. We need to talk about these, I said, passing the papers through my window. Multiple charges at the airport Marriott. Care to explain? Her face shifted, that familiar mask sliding into place. You're paranoid, unstable. You pushed me first. That's why I had to defend myself. The doorbell camera shows otherwise. My voice stayed level, though my chest felt tight. And CPS? Really? They're coming tonight. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. 8 o'clock. Maybe you should think about that before making accusations. The evidence will speak for itself, I said, watching her face. Everything's documented. She stepped back, arms crossed. We'll see what they say about your temper. In the rearview mirror, I saw Emily's car pull away, tires spitting gravel. The rest of the afternoon crawled. I heated dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets for dinner, played 3 rounds of Go Fish, and tried not to watch the clock. At 7:55, my phone buzzed with a doorbell alert. 5 minutes later, right at 8, came the knock. 2 CPS investigators stood on my doorstep at precisely 8 o'clock, a man and woman in business casual, both carrying tablets. I welcomed them in with steady hands, gesturing toward the living room where I'd already set out water bottles and my evidence timeline. Thank you for coming, I said, keeping my voice calm. I understand you received a report? The female investigator, Martinez, according to her ID, took the lead. Yes, we're following up on concerns about household safety. Would you walk us through recent events? I nodded, reaching for the folder I'd prepared. I've documented everything chronologically. Let's start with yesterday evening. My hands didn't shake as I showed them the photos of my bruised shoulder, timestamp clear in the metadata. The male investigator, Wilson, examined each image carefully on his tablet while I explained the confrontation over the hidden phone. Here's the ER discharge summary, I continued, sliding the paperwork across. And this is footage from our doorbell camera showing my wife leaving afterward. Martinez studied the video, making notes. And the children were present during this incident? No, they were upstairs asleep. I had my brother Nate help me get them to his place right after, to keep them away from any conflict. I pulled up the threatening text about CPS on the second phone. I received this warning this morning. Wilson's eyebrows rose slightly. May we see the children? Of course. I led them upstairs where both kids were sound asleep. My daughter had kicked off her blanket. I gently tucked it back around her shoulders while the investigators observed. The night light cast a gentle glow across their peaceful faces. Back downstairs, Martinez gestured at the kitchen. Would you mind if we look around? Please do. I stepped back, letting them take in the tidied counters, the children's artwork on the fridge, the packed lunches ready for tomorrow. I've maintained their regular routines throughout this situation. They completed their inspection efficiently, noting the well-stocked pantry and the absence of safety hazards. When we returned to the living room, I had my laptop ready. I'm happy to email you the complete documentation, I offered, including the temporary protective order filed this morning. Martinez nodded. That would be helpful. We'll need to conduct follow-up interviews, but everything appears stable here. The children's safety is my priority, I said quietly. I'm filing for temporary custody tomorrow to ensure they have consistency while this is resolved. After they left, I called Nate. Can you come over? I want to move the kids to your place tonight again, just to be safe. He arrived 15 minutes later. Together we gathered sleeping children and overnight bags, working in silence. The kids barely stirred as we buckled them into car seats. Back at Nate's apartment, I settled into his home office with my laptop. The evidence packet went to CPS first. One comprehensive email with everything clearly labeled. Then I opened a new document and typed temporary custody, morning at the top. The clock read 11:47 p.m. when I saved the custody filing to a dedicated flash drive. Every fact, photo, and statement sat ready for court, telling our truth in plain language. The county courthouse opened at 8 sharp. I'd barely slept, but adrenaline kept me steady as I filed the temporary custody paperwork. The clerk stamped each page with mechanical precision while I waited, thinking of my kids sleeping peacefully at Nate's apartment, safe from the chaos. Back at Nate's place by 9, I settled into his spare room with my laptop and the second phone. The kids were at school, and Nate had left for work after making sure I ate something. The quiet helped me focus as I began methodically combing through backup folders. Remember those old detective shows where they'd enhance grainy security footage? This felt like that, but with digital breadcrumbs. Each folder held fragments, cached messages, attachment previews, temp files that hadn't quite disappeared. I documented everything, creating a timeline in a fresh spreadsheet. The morning sun crept across the desk as I worked. My coffee went cold, forgotten, as I opened audio attachments one by one. Most were dead ends, pocket recordings, background noise, snippets of music. Then I found it. Memo 37-9 M4A, tucked away in a temp folder from 3 days ago. The timestamp matched a period when Emily had been grocery shopping. I clicked play. "We'll say he's violent," Emily's voice hissed through my earbuds. My fingers tensed on the mouse, but I kept listening. "Are you sure about this?" a male voice whispered back. "Once we start—" The air left my lungs. That voice. I knew that cadence, that slight hesitation between words. Derek. My best friend, Derek. I hit pause, my hand shaking slightly. The betrayal hit like a physical blow, worse than the stairs in its way. Derek had been in my wedding party. He'd helped me paint the nursery when our first was coming. We'd celebrated promotions together, grieved losses together. Taking a deep breath, I pressed play again. Had to be certain. "Get the house clean first," Derek continued in the recording. "Then we timed the CPS call." "Perfect," Emily cut in. "He'll never see it coming." I labeled the file with today's date and D. Mason voice confirmation. My stomach churned, but my mind stayed crystalline clear. This wasn't time for emotion. This was evidence, and evidence needed handling. I reached for my phone and called my attorney's office. Her secretary put me through immediately. "I found something," I said when she answered. "Audio file. Emily plotting with Derek Mason, my friend, the one who notarized our refinance papers last month." "Send it now," she replied crisply. "And Mr. Grant, good work staying systematic." I emailed the file, then sat back in Nate's office chair. The morning sun caught dust motes floating in the air. Funny how the world kept turning while foundations crumbled. My coffee had long since gone cold, but I sipped it anyway, letting the bitter taste ground me. My phone buzzed 10 minutes later. Email from counsel. "Received audio. This changes strategy. Will present in mediation. Exhibit A. Hold steady." I locked the phone and stared at the empty coffee cup. All those Thursday night beers with Derek, all those shared confidences, the magnitude of it settled over me like a heavy blanket. But I didn't feel anger, just a calm, clear certainty about what needed to happen next. 2 days passed like molasses. I'd rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times, but nothing prepared me for the sterile reality of the mediation room. The conference table stretched between us like a moral divide. Emily and her attorney on one side, me and my counsel on the other. Nate sat quietly behind me, a steady presence at my back. The mediator's office smelled of coffee and leather-bound law books. Late morning sun filtered through vertical blinds, casting stripes across the polished wood. I kept my breathing measured, hands folded on the stack of documents in front of me. My attorney had prepped me well. Facts only, no emotions, let the evidence speak. I remembered summer cookouts where Derek had raised a beer to friendship, to loyalty. Now he waited in the hallway like a stranger. The mediator's assistant called him in, and he shuffled to the far end of the table, refusing to meet my eyes. "Mr. Grant," the mediator began, "please state your primary concerns." "Safety for my children," I said evenly, "and an accurate accounting of events." Emily's fingers drummed against her water glass. She'd dressed carefully for this. Subtle makeup, conservative blouse, wedding ring still in place. The performance was already starting. My attorney nodded slightly, and I reached for my laptop. "I'd like to play something for the record," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "An audio file from 3 days before the CPS report." The room fell silent except for the soft click of the trackpad. Then Emily's voice filled the space. "We'll say he's violent." Derek's complexion went chalk white. He stared at his hands, spread flat against the table's surface, as his own voice answered hers. The memo played out in full, their careful plotting laid bare in whispers and half-finished sentences. Emily reached for the tissue box with practiced precision. Right on cue, her lower lip trembled. I'd seen that exact tremor at my mother's funeral, at our wedding, every time she'd needed sympathy. But now I recognized it for what it was: calculation. "That's not," she started, but her attorney touched her wrist. The mediator made a note on her legal pad. "This recording appears to contradict your previous statement about the CPS report being prompted by genuine concern." "My only focus is protecting my children," I said quietly. "They deserve a home built on truth, not manipulation." Sunlight shifted across the table as minutes ticked past. Derek hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, just sat there like a statue while his betrayal played out in his own voice. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. My attorney cleared her throat. "With your permission," she said to the mediator, "I'd like to introduce additional documentation." She slid a thicker folder across the table's surface. "These relate to certain home equity transactions executed last month." Emily's fingers clenched around her tissue. Derek's shoulders hunched slightly forward. "Please proceed," the mediator said. My attorney opened the folder with careful precision. "These documents appear to be a home equity line of credit application processed last month," she explained, spreading out the papers. "You'll note the notary stamp and signature here." She tapped the bottom right corner where Derek's official mark stood out in blue ink. The mediator leaned forward, adjusting her reading glasses. "And the relevance?" "The signatures don't match our client's known exemplars," my attorney continued. "Additionally, we have this preliminary letter from First Regional flagging irregularities in the application process." I watched Emily's face as the bank's letterhead came into view. That subtle twitch at the corner of her mouth. I'd seen it before when her careful plans started unraveling. The mediator's eyebrows lifted as she examined the documents. My attorney wasn't finished. She placed a printed text message thread on top of the pile. "And this exchange between Mr. Mason and Mrs. Grant, time-stamped the day after the HELOC was processed." She read aloud. "Get the house clean. Everything's set." Derek seemed to deflate, shoulders curving inward like a closing flower. "I'll make it right," he whispered, more to the table than to anyone in particular. "I'll fix it." Emily's attorney raised a hand. "We need to caucus," she announced, her tone clipped. 15 minutes? The mediator nodded. "Let's take a break. Mr. Grant, your team can remain here. Mrs. Grant, Mr. Mason, please follow me." As they filed out, Nate squeezed my shoulder. The touch carried years of shared understanding. Afternoons building tree forts, late-night talks about Dad, the morning he'd helped me pick out Emily's ring. I steadied myself with a deep breath. "Stay focused," my attorney advised quietly. "When they return, we'll emphasize the custody schedule and property division. The criminal implications can be handled separately." They returned 13 minutes later. Emily's makeup had been touched up, but her confidence had cracked. Derek looked like he'd aged 5 years in 15 minutes. Their attorney spoke first. "We're prepared to discuss terms," she said. "Mrs. Grant will accept responsibility for the assault and false reporting charges. Mr. Mason has agreed to provide a written confession regarding the HELOC situation and will establish a repayment plan." My attorney nodded. "And the bank?" "We won't contest the lien being voided," Emily's counsel confirmed. "All parties understand this was improperly obtained." The mediator made rapid notes. "I'll schedule a final session to formalize these points," she said. "The court will need to review and approve the terms." She glanced at her calendar. "More pressing is the temporary custody matter. I'll make sure the judge sees this file first thing tomorrow morning. Given the evidence presented, I expect you'll have a ruling within days." I kept my expression neutral, but inside, relief flooded through me like a warm tide. Finally, the truth was pushing through the cracks they'd tried to paper over. Finally, my kids would have stability built on honest ground. The paperwork landed in waves over the next 3 days. First came the custody order, granting me primary placement with a careful schedule that put the kids' stability first. The judge's language was clear and measured. She'd seen through the fog of accusations to the documented truth underneath. I was in Nate's kitchen when my attorney called about Emily's plea deal. "Assault and false reporting," she confirmed, "both with clear accountability measures." My hand tightened on the phone as she outlined the terms. Some jail time, a permanent marker of choices and consequences. Derek's confession came in this morning, she continued. Full admission about the HELOC scheme, notary fraud, everything. He's already transferred the first repayment installment. I thought about those long-ago summer nights when Derek and I had planned our futures over beers in my parents' garage. How many of those memories had been real? How many were just careful groundwork for what he'd tried to take? The bank's letter arrived by certified mail. Fraudulent lien voided, clear title restored. Simple words that gave me back my home. I ran my thumb over the raised seal, remembering the day I'd first signed those mortgage papers. Young, proud, certain I was building something lasting. Ready? Nate asked from the doorway. He held up a paper bag from the hardware store. Got the sandpaper you want? Fine grit. I nodded, gathering my keys. Kids are at school until 3. Plenty of time. The house felt different as we walked in. Lighter somehow, like truth had cleaned out old shadows. We spread the drop cloth over the stairs, and I knelt to examine the deep gouge in the banister where my shoulder had caught. The oak was solid underneath, waiting to be restored. Remember when Dad taught us to sand with the grain? Nate asked, handing me the paper. I did. Dad had been so patient, showing us how to feel the wood's natural direction. Light pressure, I quoted, hearing Dad's voice in my head. Let the paper do the work. The repetitive motion was meditative. Strip away damage, reveal clean wood beneath. My shoulder had healed, now the house would too. Nate worked beside me in comfortable silence, gathering dust in steady sweeps. The front door opened just as I was wiping down the finished banister. Small feet thundered across the entryway. My kids, home from their first day back at their real school. They raced up the stairs without hesitation, without the wariness they'd carried these past weeks. Their laughter bounced off the walls and filled the landing with pure, uncomplicated joy. I stood, brushing dust from my jeans, and studied the smooth wood under my palm. Afternoon sun slanted through the window, warming the grain to honey gold. The repair was invisible now, but I knew exactly where it had been. Some scars you keep, not as weights, but as markers of what you've overcome. Peace is choosing truth, I said quietly, even when it hurts.